What if everything you thought about modern relationships was a lie? What if the very idea that men and women are finally equal in love has quietly created the most dangerous illusion of all? One that's not only destroying relationships, but stripping men of their deepest purpose? Welcome to the channel where we dig deep into what it means to be a man in today's chaotic world. If you're tired of shallow advice, tired of being told to just man up without understanding why, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join the brotherhood. We're going beyond the noise. Now let's talk about a phrase you've heard 1,000 times. I'm a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man. It sounds empowering, bold, unapologetic. But hidden within that phrase is a trap, one that many men fall into without even realizing it until it's too late. You see, the image of the strong, independent woman didn't just appear out of thin air. It was sculpted, shaped by decades of cultural programming, media narratives, and shifting power dynamics between the sexes. But while society was busy praising this new archetype, no one stopped to ask, what's the cost? Let's rewind. Picture the 1940s, World War II. Millions of men off to war, and women stepped into factories and leadership roles. For the first time, femininity and productivity were no longer separate. After the war, many women didn't want to return to domestic life. And by the 1960s, the feminist revolution was in full swing. Some of it was vital, pushing back against real oppression. But as the movement evolved, something shifted. Equality became sameness. Masculinity became optional. And the very essence of being a man started to blur. The phrase, "I don't need a man," became a badge of honor. But what does that really mean? And more importantly, how do men interpret it? Here's where the trap begins. When a man hears a woman say she's independent, he often translates that as safe. He thinks, she won't need me to provide. She won't be clingy. I can relax. But slowly, something else starts to creep in. A feeling he can't quite describe. He doesn't feel needed. He doesn't feel admired. He's tolerated, not treasured. This is not about attacking women. It's about understanding a subtle but powerful shift in relational energy. Men are biologically wired to protect, to provide, to lead, not because they're better, but because that's where their masculine soul comes alive. Strip away that dynamic and a man starts to drift, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Let's go deeper. Picture this. You meet a woman who has her own business, her own car, her own condo downtown. She's smart, she's beautiful. She tells you she doesn't need anything from a man. And at first you're intrigued. She's mysterious, self-sufficient. But weeks go by, and something feels off. You offer help. She declines. You plan something thoughtful. She says, I could have done that myself. But you start feeling like a guest in her life, not a hero in her story. And then it hits you. She's not looking for a partner. She's looking for a mirror. Someone who reflects her independence, not someone who brings a complementary strength. You've been disarmed, because the trap isn't just the independence. It's the illusion that a man's strength is no longer required. And when a man doesn't feel useful, when he doesn't feel like he brings something vital to the table, he either withdraws or begins to chase validation in all the wrong places. The most dangerous thing you can do to a man is rob him of his purpose. And this trap, it doesn't just snare men emotionally, it destroys attraction. Many men don't realize that feminine energy wants to feel safe enough to surrender. Not submit, surrender. There's a difference. True feminine strength is not threatened by a powerful man. It yearns for him. But when society teaches women to compete with men, to outdo them, to dismiss them, men stop stepping up, and women stop feeling desired. It becomes a cold war of egos. No polarity, no spark, no fire. You may have experienced it. Those first few months where everything felt electric. She said she was independent, but in your presence she softened. She laughed more. She leaned into your strength. And for a moment the masks fell off. But then, something changed. Maybe you hesitated. Maybe you held back your masculine frame, afraid to seem controlling or toxic. And that's when the shift happened. She picked up the sword you dropped, and the dynamic reversed. From that moment on, it was no longer a dance, it was a duel. Here's the painful truth most men never hear. When a woman says she doesn't need a man, what she often means is that she doesn't trust one. Not yet. Not fully. Maybe not ever. And here's where things get dark. Some men try to earn that trust by becoming more passive, more agreeable, more accommodating. They think if they just prove they're different, more emotionally available or modern, she'll finally open up. But what they don't realize is that by trying to earn her softness, they've already lost the frame. A man doesn't beg for a place at the table, he builds his own and invites her in. Now, before we dive deeper into how men can reclaim their masculine power without falling into the trap of domination or retreat, ask yourself this. How many relationships have you seen fall apart not because of cheating or conflict, but because of this silent erosion, this slow, invisible death of polarity, of purpose, of primal energy? Why do so many men feel invisible today? Why do they walk on eggshells, unsure of what strength is even allowed anymore? And how did we get here? Where men are applauded for being sensitive, yet punished the moment they lead. We're just scratching the surface. In the next segment, we'll explore how men can see through the illusion, reclaim their masculine core, and engage with strong women without losing themselves. Because this isn't about going backward, it's about going deeper, beyond the labels, beyond the games, back to something ancient, something real. So how does a man escape this trap? How does he stop falling for the illusion of the strong, independent woman without becoming bitter, defensive, or disconnected? First, he must understand something crucial. Strength and independence in a woman are not the problem. The trap lies in what many men project onto those traits. We see confidence and mistake it for stability. We see ambition and mistake it for emotional availability. We hear, "I don't need a man," and think, well, maybe if I'm good enough, she'll eventually want me. But that's where it all goes wrong. You were never supposed to convince a woman to want you. You were supposed to become the kind of man who naturally evokes desire, without chasing it. When you lead with masculine integrity, you don't ask if you're enough. You are enough, because your worth isn't dependent on her acceptance. It's rooted in mission, vision, and unshakable self-respect. That kind of presence creates a different energy. It doesn't compete with her independence, it completes the polarity. Masculine energy isn't about domination, it's about direction, about being a grounded force in a world of chaos. And feminine energy, even when masked by layers of, "I don't need anyone," is drawn, almost magnetically, to a man who moves with certainty. Remember this, the right woman doesn't want to lead you, she wants to trust you, but she'll never say that out loud, because if she has to ask for your leadership, the spell is already broken. Think back to mythology. Odysseus didn't ask Penelope if it was okay to fight monsters, navigate storms, and journey home. He did it because it was in his nature. His strength wasn't in asking permission. It was in having a purpose that transcended approval. And in our modern world, purpose is the antidote to confusion. Men who fall for the strong, independent woman trap usually lack direction outside of women. Their validation is external. So when they meet a woman who claims she doesn't need them, they try to earn a spot in her world rather than building one of their own. That's backwards. You don't become a man by being invited in. You become a man by building something worth inviting her into. Now let's get brutally honest. A woman saying, "I don't need a man," is not a challenge. It's not an insult. It's a test. Not of your dominance, but of your depth. She's saying, "I've been hurt. I've been let down. I've built my fortress. What do you have that's stronger than my walls?" And if your answer is, "Well, I can be really nice to you," she won't say it. But she's already gone. Instead, your answer must be unspoken. A life so rooted in direction, mastery, and self-control that she feels safer with you than alone. Not because you coddle her, but because you see her and stand firm anyway. That's rare today. In a world where men are told to be soft, pliable, and endlessly accommodating, real masculine presence has become nearly extinct. But when a man returns to it, something primal happens. People notice, women respond. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're clear. So how do you build that clarity? It begins with silence, solitude, reconnection to your own inner world. What do you stand for? What hill would you die on? What vision wakes you up at 5 a.m., not because you have to, but because you must? You see, most men are drifting, plugged into screens, addicted to distraction, tied to routines that never ask anything of their soul. And then they wonder why powerful women intimidate them. But a man who is forged in discomfort, who chooses pain over numbness and growth over convenience, he doesn't fall for illusions. He sees the strong, independent woman not as a threat, but as an ally. Not someone to rescue, but someone to dance with. Because masculinity is not about overpowering femininity. It's about polarizing it. Polarity is where attraction lives. And when a man embraces his core, he doesn't chase approval from women who don't need a man, because he doesn't need their need. He brings value with or without them. Now imagine this. You walk into a room. She sees you. She knows you're not checking her every move to see if she approves. She knows you're not afraid to walk away. She knows you've already built a life on discipline, vision, and purpose, and you're inviting her in, not begging her to stay. Suddenly the dynamic shifts. The masks drop. She doesn't have to pretend to be invincible anymore. And you don't have to pretend to be harmless. You are both whole. That is the ultimate freedom. But it only happens when you stop falling for the trap and start standing in your truth. So let me ask you, brother, what have you been chasing? Her admiration, her loyalty, her softness, or something even deeper, your own sacred masculinity? Because until you reclaim that, every woman you meet will feel like a battlefield. Every relationship will feel like a negotiation. And every heartbreak will echo with the same haunting truth, that you traded your strength for acceptance and lost both. It's time to wake up, to remember who you are. Not a servant, not a savior, not a sidekick. A man, a builder, a force of nature. And if she's strong and independent, good. Because so are you. Not from her, but for her. So that together, you don't just survive. You create. This is not a war between men and women. This is a reunion of energies that were never meant to be enemies. The only question is, will you rise above the illusion or keep falling for it? If this resonated with you, if it made you think or challenge something deep inside, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your story, your journey. Let's build a space where real masculinity is no longer hidden, mocked, or shamed, but honored. Subscribe for more content like this, because this is just the beginning. Welcome to the Brotherhood.